Hello and welcome to Strictly Speaking. My name is Joshua Reaves. I am the Director of University Theater here at NC State. And tonight we have our guest, Angie HAYS, Executive Director for the North Carolina Theater Conference. Hi, Angie.
Hi, Josh. Hi, everybody.
Hi. So, Angie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, to begin with, the very first question we always ask is, what is it that you do? What does it mean to be an executive director for the North Carolina Theater Conference? And what is the North Carolina Theater Conference?
Sure. Well, NCTC, the North Carolina Theater Conference, is the statewide service, leadership, and advocacy organization for our theater industry. So we are headquartered in Greensboro, but we work all across the state. And primarily what we do is we connect theater people and help them do their work better. So connecting people is tricky right now, but we are still doing our work. And we produce about 17 major events throughout the year. So when we say theater conference, we don't mean one conference where we all come together to learn things. We mean a conference, just like the sports mean conferences. We're all in this together. We're a network of theater people working together to do our work. So that's in broad strokes. I know we're going to talk some about the very specific programs that we do, but that is what NCTC is. We're a network of theater people, and that network ranges from young students through retirees. And as executive director, I manage our 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have a staff of 2 full-time, 1 part-time, a budget just under $300,000 for the year. And so we do a lot of work with a little bit of money. I serve as our chief executive officer, chief financial officer. I'm responsible to the board of directors. I handle everything from budgeting to event planning to strategic planning and advocacy, which I know we're going to talk a little bit later about. So that's a real quick overview.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. So let's start from, let's figure out who the players are in NCTC. So you mentioned you're answerable to the board of directors. I think a lot of our audience may know what a board of directors is, but for NCTC and for theater and arts organizations in general, what exactly does a board of directors do?
Sure. So the NCTC membership is made up of people that do different theater at different levels. So we're a membership-based organization. We have K-12 teachers, college, university, faculty and staff, students, professional and community theaters. So our board of directors is representative of our membership. But every nonprofit organization has a board of directors, and these are volunteers that serve the organization and serve the community. They hold the public's trust for nonprofit organizations. So every nonprofit is responsible for the community good, and boards make sure that nonprofits are spending their money wisely, that they have the resources they need to do their work, and that they're accountable to the public. So NCTC's board is made up of about 14 individuals from all across the state who represent our membership. So board members fundraise, they participate in advocacy, they help us run our events and programs, especially since we have such a small staff, and they oversee our mission, vision, and values. Every nonprofit has a mission statement, and it's the board's job to make sure that that mission statement is relevant and is an active thing that is happening for the organization. So board members are volunteers, they don't get paid, and they do a whole bunch of work, and then they go out and they raise money from other people to help us do the work that we do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And sorry about that, everyone. Yay, Zoom.
Love it.
Yeah, that's great. And if any of our audience members wanted to get involved in board membership, and I also know that and we'll get to this a little bit later about how you all actually work with board members and board, building a board for theater programs. How would one get involved with such a volunteer position?
Sure. So most boards are looking for board members from their community. They're looking for active members of their community. So the NCTC community is statewide, but if there's a theater in your area and you like their work, you're going to want to buy tickets to their show. You're going to want to subscribe, buy as much as you can afford to buy to support the organization. and then start donating to the organization and become a volunteer. Those are where theater companies are going to look for their board members. They're going to look at their volunteer base, their ticket buyers, and their donors, because as a board member, it is your job to be the most excited person about the organization that you can possibly be. And you can't be excited about an organization that you're not familiar with. So if you want to get involved, start out by volunteering, giving your time and money in any way that you can, and then reach out to the executive director or board member. Almost all theaters have the list of their board members on their website. If you know them, reach out and say, hey, I'm interested in serving and getting involved. And know that, you know, you may not start out as a board member. They may have another volunteer opportunity. A lot of organizations ask potential board members to serve on the fundraising committee before they join the board, to make sure you really understand that part of the commitment. But do everything you can to support the organization that you're interested in, and then reach out and say, I'd love to get involved even further.
Awesome. Thank you. So Abby, Caroline, Enzo, you guys heard that. Make sure you get out there and support your local theaters. And also remember, our Q&A is open. So jump in there and ask these questions as we go throughout the night. Okay, Faith, Logan. So Angie, talk to us a bit more about NCTC. Like, give us a bit of a historic overview. Like, how long has the organization been part of North Carolina, and what's its reach? How much, you know, how much
Sure.
of it? Yeah, I'm going to play a little background video while you speak.
Okay, great. I think we're looking at a montage of some of our work. So NCTC actually right now is celebrating our 50th anniversary. We had big plans for a 50th celebration that have been sidelined, as so many things have, but we are in our 50th season, which is really exciting. And the membership, we work with K-12 schools, the students and the teachers at those schools, and we have about 150 K-12 schools across the state who are involved with NCTC. Our colleges and universities, we have about 30 college theater programs and non-theater programs like NC State participating in NCTC events, and the students who go to those schools are involved as well. And then we have about 50 professional and community theater companies across the state that are part of our membership. And so the staff members, the volunteers, the board members at those organizations are all part of our broader membership base. And then there are our individual members, folks who are arts supporters or professional actors, designers, technicians who are part of the membership on an individual basis, and also just arts supporters. There are lots of arts advocates across the state that are connected with NCTC. So we have thousands of official members and thousands more of connected people to our member organizations across the state. We do work with organizations from the coast to the mountains and have a solid membership base in every area. And we also have board members in every area of the state who help us serve those regions. So even though we're based in Greensboro, people don't really know where our office is because we're really just based on the internet. And in normal times, the staff is on the road a lot visiting with our members in their region.
So speak to that a bit. Like, how much travel do you and your two staff members do? And it's a huge state. So how much are you on the road?
It's a huge state. So it hasn't been very strange for me not to be in the office because I don't actually spend very much time in our office. So Amanda Clark is our general manager, and she is sort of our director of operations. She is holding down the fort in the office a lot of the time, but Amanda does get on the road quite a bit too. But Amanda and I are the full-time staff, so we're the ones doing the most travel. I would say in normal times, I am on the road every week. It doesn't mean that I am gone 5 days in that week, but I am on the road somewhere every week. I am in Raleigh at least once a month and in Charlotte at least once a month, and then getting to our other markets as well. So this is a weird time to not be traveling. It's a weird time for everyone, but particularly for me, you know, I'm home in my own bed way more than I am used to. And Amanda is as well. She does travel a lot as well. So some of our travel is just meeting with our members. A big part of what we do is we are a connector for our member groups. So I need to be able to go into a theater company and hear the issues they're dealing with and be able to offer up, oh, there's another theater company in this network dealing with the same issues, and I will connect you with them. So it's important for me to know what's going on and be able to talk with our members so I can connect them with each other for problem solving and sharing best practices. So sometimes it's just meeting with folks. We go see a lot of shows, which we love to do. And then we do a lot of work on our events. So all of the events that we do are throughout the state, and we are constantly out scouting sites for our events and doing site visits. Each time we have a conference somewhere, we do it, 2, 3, 5 site visits to make sure we have all of the information we need to be able to execute our program. We require so many different host sites for our programs that we have to do a lot of visiting to check out a lot of spaces and meet with a lot of potential volunteers to make sure that we have everything in place for our events. As I said, there's only 3 of us, and then there's 14 board members, and we cannot be in every place at every time. In fact, in the fall, we run 8 conferences simultaneously. So we have to do a lot of legwork ahead of time to make sure that everything is ready to go when we physically cannot be there. But then a lot of my travel is bouncing between all of those events and making sure that they're going as well as they can and getting myself in my car quickly when there is an issue.
Now, I know we're going to get to all these events because you got a lot of them. But before we do that, I want to hear more about your journey from, say high school to this point. Like, how did you get to saying, I want to be the executive director of NCTC? Like, how did that journey happen?
Sure. Well, I grew up in Southern Ohio in a very rural area, and we didn't have theater in our school. We had a student-produced spring musical that I was very involved with, but we had no teachers that were theater teachers or really anyone to help us figure out how to do that. We did that all on our own. So I got the theater bug just by watching the older kids and watching videotapes of what they were doing. I'm sure those were not legal videotapes. Don't just tape your show. But that's how I learned about theater, was watching those tapes over and over and over again. So I knew I wanted to major in theater in college, even though that's not something that we had anywhere near me or that I knew how to make a career out of. I just knew that that's what I wanted to try to do, and I would figure it out when I got there, which is what I did. So I started as a performer because that's all I knew. I didn't know there were other jobs you could have. But in hindsight, I was doing those other jobs on those, spring musicals we were creating. I was stage managing, I was in the show, I was choreographing, I was doing all the things that I didn't know were jobs that you could actually have in the theater industry.
Mm-hmm.
I have a BA in theater from Kent State University in Ohio. And mainly while I was there, I worked as a stage manager and a director, but I had a lot of odd jobs. That was really the start of my generalist sort of training. Because I was a work study student and I needed to make money, I worked every job that was available. So I was the scene shop secretary or administrator. I was ordering lumber, picking up lumber, doing whatever we needed with the scene shop. I was involved with the auditions for entry into the program. So I was copying scripts and running audition programs. I was traveling to help with auditions. Anything that they needed help with, I would sign up for so I could get those work study hours. So I really started getting a wide range of experience at that point. After college, I ended up in Pittsburgh and got a job as an agent for a model and talent agency. And that was a job that I got through a connection with my college professors. And I was the director of the children's division in that agency in Pittsburgh, as well as running our promotional division, which is where you send models and actors out to do, promos, giveaways for products, things like that. So I've loved my job, but it was a very small agency in a very small market, and I made very, very little money. It was not sustainable in any way. So my husband, I was married by that point, was interested in going to pursue his doctorate in Greensboro. And so one thing led to another, and I found that the University of North Carolina School of the Arts in Winston-Salem was starting a brand new program, a graduate degree in performing arts management. And I thought that kind of sounds like what I want to do. Throughout college, I had been asking my professors, I'd been saying, I want to run the theater. And they were kind of like, oh, good, you can stage manage. I'm like, well, no, but who picks the shows? I'm like, oh, okay, you can direct. But I never really figured out what arts administration was, because that's not really something that my program did. So I found this new program in performing arts management, started reading about it, and thought, yes, this is what I want to do. It kind of checked all the boxes for me. So I thought, he wants to be in Greensboro. I'm sure Winston-Salem is like 5 hours away. North Carolina is a huge state. So I looked at a map and realized actually they're in the exact same place. So that was good timing, and it worked out. So that was my college journey in a very quick nutshell. I went to School of the Arts. I was in that first class. I have an MFA in Performing Arts Management. So that's a terminal degree. I've been able to use the degree to do some teaching along the way. But it was a 2-year resident program, and then our 3rd year we were to go away on a year-long internship. I ended up going to Paper Mill Playhouse in Millburn, New Jersey, where I apprenticed with the managing director and artistic director there. And they actually had me sort of work through every department in the theater. And I sort of became the vacation fill-in. Whenever somebody was gone, I would take their job while they were away and keep things running until they came back again. About halfway through my internship, I was lucky to be offered an opportunity to become their first audience development manager. So I was tasked with bringing new audiences into the theater. And I said, great, how do you do that? And they said, well, you're the first and you're going to figure it out. So that is what I set out to do. Unfortunately, after the first 30 days on the job, this was 2007, and there was a major recession and the theater nearly closed. So instead of becoming the audience development manager, I became a press secretary, I became a fundraiser, anything to help keep the doors open, and that is what everybody on the staff did. I was standing in the lobby with an evening news crew. They were getting ready to do an interview with our artistic director, and I was making sure they had everything they needed set up. And I saw on my cell phone that I was getting a call from Terry Milner. And something about it just said, I better take this call. I don't know why Terry's calling me. And Terry was one of my professors in graduate school. He taught my law and the arts class, and he was the executive director of the North Carolina Theater Conference. And Terry said, I know you're at Paper Mill. I'm sure you're having a great time. I don't know if you have any interest in coming back to North Carolina, but I wanted to let you know that I'm leaving my position and I think you should consider applying. And I was like, yeah, I need to know more about that. The theater, Paper Mill is open and doing well and thriving and got through that difficult time. And now, of course, they're getting through another difficult time. But I ended up getting the job, and I'm so glad I did. So I've been at NCTC now for 13 years. So that's my journey.
Wow.
Really quickly.
Thank you for that. And remember, Faith, Laura Lynn, Logan, the Q&A is open. So throw those questions out there. And, you can also do it anonymously, so you don't have to worry about me calling you out anymore. So, Angie, you've been at NCTC for 13 years. What is the biggest change that has happened from now to 13 years ago, or from 13 years ago to now? So
as I said, we're in our 50th anniversary season right now. And over that 15 years, NCTC has actually only had 4 executive directors. I am the 4th. So each executive director has really been able to take the organization and shape it in their own way. There have been sort of phases of the organization that kind of coincide with each executive director. One thing that several of us have in common of the 4 is that we're very much interested in arts advocacy and public policy. So that's something that has been consistent throughout the years. As far as what are the biggest changes, for the first 40 years of the organization's existence, they had only 1 staff member, and that was the executive director. So it became clear to me early on that if we wanted to expand programs and expand our reach, which we did, we needed to build the staff. So even though there's only 3 of us now, there's 3 of us now, and that's a huge change. Amanda, our general manager, has been with me for 10 years now, and she started as an intern out of college at UNC Chapel Hill. She was an intern, and then we offered her the opportunity to sort of train and learn on the job. And she was part-time at first and then full-time. And she and I worked very hard to grow that position and grow that salary and keep her. And then a few years ago, we were able to start a part-time marketing position that has now grown to about 26 hours a week. So it's a little more than half-time. So that's the biggest change. But with that change, we've been able to expand many of our programs. The producing gathering, which we will talk about, has grown tremendously in terms of the scope of that event. We've been able, because we have a more stable staff situation, we've been able to, I think, better staff our programs, which helps them become more professional. So even though that's kind of an inside baseball thing that has changed, it's been a huge thing for the organization. And then the biggest thing is just 2020. That is the biggest thing that's happened to NCTC in the last decade. And yeah.
Well, that brings us to our first question from our audience. An anonymous attendee is asking, how is the current pandemic affecting your job? How have you had to shift your position to accommodate for the new precautions related to the virus? And how is your company planning to move forward?
Sure. So just in our office, in our staff, we work in a very small room together that has poor ventilation. So we're still working at home, and that is working fine for us. We've seen each other, we check in sometimes, we get together outdoors on my deck, and we do Zoom and all the things that you do. And as I mentioned, I was already on the road a lot anyway, so we're used to me not being there every day. We're used to not being together every day. So that wasn't that big of a deal, but we are still working at home. We're still doing board meetings virtually, and I haven't really resumed travel at this time. Because most of the folks I would be traveling to meet with are not necessarily back in their offices and spaces either. Schools aren't allowing outside visitors. So travel really has come to a halt. Our travel budget has also come to a halt. So we have a big part of our revenue comes from membership dollars, and we are very grateful that our members have prioritized paying their dues and seeing the value of the work that we're doing to help serve them through the pandemic. So our membership has remained pretty stable, but has seen, a large reduction this year, and hopefully people will be able to be back next year or the following year. And then, so we did have to cancel some of our events in the spring and summer that were just too quick of a turnaround to be able to move to a virtual format. But now all of our fall events are virtual, and our spring events will likely be as well. We haven't made announcements about those yet. So, but really, from the moment the pandemic hit, I had to, going back to that sort of generalist education, I had to learn new things really quickly. I had to learn a lot about unemployment insurance, more than I ever wanted to know, so that I could help our members understand how they could best serve their employees and help them through the pandemic with the government resources that were available and the new resources coming available through COVID. I had to learn more about the Small Business Association loans than I ever thought I would want to learn. So SBA loans have been a huge thing during the pandemic that helped our members weather sort of the first wave. So I had to learn a lot about how those applications worked, how to help our theater companies get them quickly. It was a very challenging time to be able to try to secure those loans. So really becoming a coach with that. And then the spring is really the time of year that I focus a lot of my efforts on our state and federal advocacy initiatives anyway, but we had to take a whole new approach in talking with our elected officials about COVID relief for nonprofit arts organizations. And of course that work continues. So we're shutting our houses, we're not traveling, everything's happening online, and the field is in severe financial crisis. That's a quick
It's like 20.
look. Yeah. Sounds like 2020.
Yeah. Well, you've mentioned this term quite a few times now, and I think perhaps if you could lend us some professional definition to what does arts advocacy mean?
Sure. So advocacy in general just means trying to influence someone. That's it. You're trying to influence someone. So when you add the word arts to it, it means you're trying to influence someone about the arts. So advocacy in its broadest sense is just, hey, you want to go to a show? I heard it's really good. We should go. Mm-hmm. And then really when we talk about advocacy, we're most likely talking about public policy that impacts arts organizations. So that could be funding issues or education policy, but we are talking about talking with elected officials or people in power about the arts and why the arts deserve support. So we're talking to principals, superintendents, school boards, our state elected officials, our governor's office, our federal elected officials, people who work in the government, anyone who's in a position of power to do something that will be supportive of the arts. So all of us that are involved in the arts, we know why the arts matter. It's in our blood, it's in our bones, but not everybody knows why the arts matter, and not everybody cares enough to support the arts. And so my job is to help the theater industry know when and how we can most effectively advocate for the arts. Now, a lot of what I do is advocacy, and a little bit of what I do is lobbying. So the difference between advocacy and lobbying is a very specific legal distinction. And when you go from advocacy to lobbying, you are simply switching to a more specific gear where you are talking to an elected official about a specific piece of legislation. So you can talk with an elected official about why the arts matter and the economic impact of the arts and why arts education is important. And that's all advocacy. And everyone should be doing arts advocacy in lots of ways every day. But you switch to lobbying when you say, and I need your support on Senate Bill 66, and here is why. So I do lobbying and I do advocacy. 99.9% of the time, my work is advocacy. But sometimes I get a little touchy, when maybe my grandma's railing against the lobbyists who control Washington. And sure, we need to get money out of politics, believe me. But I also do lobbying, and arts leaders do lobbying because we need support on specific issues. So it's not an issue that's just about big banks and big corporations. Us little guys also lobby our elected officials, as we should, for our seat at the table. So mostly advocacy, a little bit of lobbying, lots of just trying to get people to support the arts.
Well, that brings me to my question. Arts Day and Arts North Carolina. Can you speak a bit about that organization and that particular event? Tell us about it.
Absolutely. We love Arts North Carolina. Arts North Carolina, artsnc.org, is our statewide arts advocacy organization. So I work statewide with the theater industry, and we have other service organizations that work with dance and music and so on. But Arts North Carolina, we all come under that umbrella for our advocacy work. So there's no official connection between the organizations. It's an unofficial partnership. But Arts North Carolina works with all arts disciplines to advocate for the arts, specifically to speak for the arts wherever there is need. I serve on the board of directors for that organization. I'm part of the leadership committee there, and we are working on behalf of artists, arts organizations, arts leaders from across the state to make sure that the resources are available, and to specifically make sure that artists and arts supporters know when and how their voice can be used to make sure that the arts have the support they need. So we work just with theaters at NCTC. My work with Arts North Carolina is for the entire arts industry. It's a similar organization in size to NCTC. There's 3 staff members, 2 of which are part-time. So Nate McGackey, who's the executive director there, and I work very closely together to pool our resources and time to make sure we're working smartly and efficiently. We also, at Arts North Carolina is a membership organization. We also take the dues money that comes in, and part of what we use the money for is we have a professional lobbyist who works on our behalf. So Nate is a lobbyist as well, but we also have a firm whose job it is to go to Raleigh when you're allowed to go in the building, which right now you can't, and talk to those elected officials and make sure things happen in terms of funding and support for the arts on our behalf.
Well, we have another question from let's see. What are certain characteristics that one should have in order to do this job well?
Okay, well, I think that it's important to have good writing skills. I do a lot of writing. I write a lot of our website content. I write reports for the field and emails and letters to our elected officials. And that kind of stuff has to be turned around quickly. And when you're working on a small staff, there's not a lot of other people that can help you proof it and edit it. So we do that for each other, but it's important to have strong writing skills. It's also important to be comfortable with public speaking, which, sometimes I'm more comfortable than others, but that theater training certainly helps. It's important to be a good researcher. Especially, a job like mine, I have to know a lot of different things, or sometimes I say I know a little bit about a lot of things, but it's important for me to be able to figure out quickly how to research an issue and resolve an issue. I would say what I wish I knew that you all can build skills wise is more about web design and graphic design. That's not my background. We haven't always had a marketing person, and so it's difficult for me to turn out stuff like that very quickly that looks good. So if you're in those courses, stay in those courses and do that. So yeah, that's some of the skills that you might want to have.
Thank you. So here, let's hit a couple of those events. So you guys have a handful of signature events you do throughout the year. Let's start with the auditioning process, the screening. Okay. So tell us how NCTC fits in the SETC, world, and what the screening process is, and how you guys help facilitate that.
Sure. So we actually have several different audition programs. So people sometimes will ask me about NCTC auditions, and I don't know what they're talking about. So I know what Josh is talking about, though, is the SETC screening audition. So SETC is the Southeastern Theater Conference, and they are a service organization that serves the entire Southeast. And Mia Self, who's on your staff at NC State, is part of the board of directors of SETC. So she can always give you lots of good information about SETC as well. SETC is also based in Greensboro and was founded by some of the same folks that founded NCTC. So we're, again, partner organizations that share a lot of history, but we do lots of different things. So every year, the big thing that SETC does is a convention in March, and that moves around to different parts of the Southeast. And at that convention, there are professional auditions where theater companies fill a giant room and watch hundreds and hundreds of auditions, and they cast for their summer stock and their year-round shows. And so many actors want to attend those auditions that there has to be a screening process to narrow down the pool, because we don't have 3 weeks to watch actors audition at the convention. So in order to qualify to attend the convention and to get in front of all those theater companies, each state in the Southeast hosts a screening audition. So this is a program that is a partnership between NCTC and SETC. So SETC sets the rules and how the auditions are going to work, and NCTC produces the event. And everything is different this year, like it is for everything, but the auditions are moving online. So there's lots of new information if you've auditioned before that you'll want to check out. And you can go to setc.org to get that information. But in general, you're auditioning for a panel of adjudicators who are going to score your performance. And if you receive a high enough score, you'll be invited to attend the auditions in the spring, which as of now will happen in person, but there are backup options to make those virtual as well if needed. So right now we are accepting audition videos for the screening auditions, and we have deadlines coming up soon at the end of October. So if you're interested, you should get your audition in now. Now is the time. And on the SETC website, you can see some example videos. They're offering some webinars with some special tips for creating your videos. And Mia, again, is a great resource for you if you need some help prepping for your screening auditions. So once you pass our state level, you'll go to SETC and be seen by just dozens and dozens of professional theater companies, which is a great way to get your start. And so many actors in North Carolina got their first job through SETC and through the North Carolina Theater Conference screening process. So I wish you all the very best of luck. Amanda, who you've heard me mention, our general manager, is our point of contact for those. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us, to Mia, or to SETC.
Thank you, Angie. Yeah, and just to throw a little other plug, SETC is also great for the backstage crew as well. Just like you said, most people get their job there, and my first job was through SETC. So
yes, and the job contact is what they call the part of the convention where if you're interested in non-acting jobs, you can meet and interview with hiring companies. And they, again, I think are hoping to do that in person, but have backups plans to do that virtually as well. But yes, great opportunity and less competition. I'm just saying.
Well, let me ask you this. Is NCTC unique to North Carolina in that, is there a South Carolina theater conference or other places like that?
Yes and yes. So there are state organizations in each of the 10 Southeast states that partner with SETC in the way we do on the screening auditions and on a few of the other programs where we do shared programming. However, NCTC is unique. I believe we are the only organization that has more than one staff member, and we're the only organization that serves such a wide variety of constituents. So most of the other states do one convention a year in the fall, just like SETC does in the spring. And the majority of their programming is the same programming that feeds into SETC. So NCTC, though we partner with SETC, we decided a long time ago that if we wanted to grow and serve our members, we would need to do different things. We would need to support the field in different ways from SETC so that we could both be strong organizations. So we do a lot of things that SETC does not do. They do things that we do not do, and that's how we keep both organizations strong. So I do have peers at those organizations. I have peers at other service organizations across the country, but oftentimes those peer organizations across the country may only serve one constituent. So they may only serve education theater or professional theater, or community theater, and NCTC does everything. So that's where we're different. But yes, we do have peer organizations across the country.
Awesome. All right, we have an anonymous attendee asking, Angie, what is the most interesting aspect of your job and why?
Most
Pre-COVID and post-COVID, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. The most interesting part, I don't know if that's the same as the most fun part, but I would say the most interesting part for me personally, because I'm a bit of a nerd and I'm a bit of a political nerd, is really digging into the public policy part of the work. And this is probably why I'm suited for a show, because I don't think most people want to do this sort of thing. But I really like working on bills that we are working to get in front of the House or Senate and getting into the details of how these things can work and sort of following the process. And it's good that I like that, because some bills take literally a decade to get through the process, which we can talk about. So for me, that's the most interesting part, and then digging into sort of the research aspect. So helping to prepare the talking points of, the economic impact of the arts, which requires survey and study and research with the field and with our communities and how the arts are benefiting communities. So that to me is the most interesting part, which is really nerdy. The most fun part is getting out and getting to see shows and getting to see the really great work that's being done all across the state. I think most people don't know how much wonderful theater is happening across North Carolina. So that is the most fun part of my job, is getting to go see everybody's work and talking with everybody about their work.
All right, well, you said you were a bit of a nerd, so I'm going to throw one out at you. Talk to us about Senate Bill 681.
So are you talking about the arts education bill?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that bill has had several different numbers. It was House 135, Senate 66, and then eventually Senate 681. So 681 didn't have that number very long.
Hey.
Yeah, but the reason it didn't have that number very long. So let me back up. In North Carolina, in our public school system, there has been no law that says that any student in grades K through 12 in a public school in North Carolina was guaranteed access to arts education. There was nothing that said a school had to provide one music class in 12 years, one visual arts class in 12 years. So even though a lot of our schools do offer arts education, it was not a required subject at all anywhere in the state. So about 15 years ago, a group of arts leaders started to say, we need to do something about this. We need to protect arts teacher jobs. We need to make sure our students have access to high quality arts education. We know how important it is, and we need to make sure our elected officials know how important it is. So a study committee was started. And on my first day in this job, I met with Karen Wells, who was then the executive director of Arts North Carolina, who said, get ready, get up to speed. This is starting, and it's starting now. So I've been involved since pretty much the very beginning on working on this piece of legislation that has had many bill numbers over the course of several years. We have had bipartisan support along the way. We just have not had enough of it. We've had huge votes on the bill with bipartisan support, overwhelming majority, and we would get hung up on one person in one leadership role that would not let the bill be finalized. So since about 2005, a group of us have been working on this legislation, and just in the spring this year, April maybe, just when we thought, well, this bill's dead for a while, we've got other things to deal with now with COVID. We were so thrilled to hear that our piece of legislation had been tacked on to Senate Bill 681, and we got a vote, and the legislation passed. After 13 years, it is now a requirement in the state of North Carolina for students to get at least one, only one, arts education course in grades 6 through 12. And this will take effect in a couple of years. It doesn't take effect just now. It takes a while for these things to be implemented, but it is a huge win. It's so exciting. And this is just a great example of how hard the work can be and how long it can take to make one small change, but it's a huge change for our kids. It's a huge change for the future of the field. And we're thrilled. We are so excited and so thrilled.
Well, first off, I want to personally thank you for all your work you've done on that. I think it's extremely important, and I mean, as a spouse of a high school theater teacher, I know how transformative an arts class can be for a student. I do want to continue along the public school side of things and talk a bit about one of your programs, your events that you guys do, the middle school and high school play festival. Can you speak a bit about that?
I can. So if NCTC has a flagship program, this is it. This program has been going on since, I think, before we were actually called NCTC and incorporated. I'm not sure. It's been going on so long, we don't have records from that far back. And what's so cool about this program is that we are exposing children to arts education starting in middle school, and then really it goes and explodes in high school. So the High School Play Festival is an event where students present a 45-minute play. They get feedback from professionals in the field, and it's really a celebration of everyone's work. So hundreds of students come to each site. They watch each other's work. They cheer each other on. They support each other through a variety of different ways. And we get to see the great theater that's happening in our high schools. It also elevates the level of excellence in our theater programs when they see each other's work and see what the bar can be. They raise the bar the next year and bring something even more incredible. So we are so proud of this program. It is a massive program. We have 8 regional high school sites. That's where I was saying we run 8 events simultaneously throughout the fall. Over 2 weekends, we run 8 High School Play Festival regional sites, 16 plays at each site, over 2 days at each site. So students in many cases are seeing more theater at the Play Festival than they will see for the rest of the year, or maybe even the rest of their lives combined. So we put everybody in a theater together, watch 16 great shows, give out tons of awards, have a huge celebration at the end, and send the students home feeling accomplished and celebrated. There are, as you all know, not everyone's parents are supportive of pursuits in the arts. And these students get to go home and say, not only did we have fun, but I won this award. Somebody said that my activity had worth, that what I'm spending my time on is valid, and that it's a worthy opportunity for me in the future. So we're really building up those individual students. And then our teachers also take home a list of awards and accomplishments that they can show their principal, their school board, their superintendent, to say, look, our program deserves recognition. We got recognition just like the sports programs, and we deserve money, we deserve a budget, we deserve your attention. Our work is good. These folks said it was good, and you need to pay attention to us. So it's an advocacy program as well. We also then follow up with each principal of every school that participates and make sure they understand what we are celebrating and how the Play Festival aligns with their essential standards for education and how it helps build their students and the reputation of their school. So those 8 regional play festivals feed into the state high school play festival. We have 2 winners from each site. They get to go to the state festival and showcase their talents there. And from there, 2 of the shows are selected to represent the state at SETC at that convention in the spring. So it's a huge event. In the spring, we do a middle school festival that's only 2 sites, but we get to do the same thing all over again with our younger students, which is really great. And a big change that's happened over the years, if anyone participated in the Play Festival, maybe 20, 30 years ago, it is still a competitive event. There are still winners at the end of the day, but we have worked really hard to make this a fun festival celebration type event. We've made a lot of changes over the last few years that allow the students to have more of a voice. They get to vote for one of the winning shows, which is really exciting. They get to support each other through a lot of different ways at the Play Festival. And so it really builds community. It really helps students know that even outside of their school, they have a theater community. They have people that will support them and their work. So it's the heart and soul of NCTC. We love the program, and our entire membership is involved. We have colleges that host the Play Festivals. Our professional theater representatives adjudicate at the Play Festivals. We have board members who don't work in education, and that's their favorite event. They go out and help us run those events, but it takes a massive amount of volunteers. There's more than 30 volunteers at each site of the festival, and some have hundreds of volunteers that are working to make the event happen. So we're working hard throughout the year to scout those sites and plan the programming and make sure we have the support teams in place to execute.
Wow. And Angie, you're like the 16th speaker on here, and we always come back to this idea that the theater world is such a small community. And I can't tell you how often I hear students that came up through North Carolina's public schools say, I went to the Play Festival. I went to the Play Festival, whether it was a middle school or high school or the state level. It's something that they've always, I've experienced that they've always held that to be one of the most fondest memories of being in high school with them.
Well, and we, when we train our adjudicators, we are very clear that you are not giving feedback necessarily to future professional actors. There may be a couple of students that you're talking to that become professional actors, but your job, your mission as adjudicators is to instill a love of theater in these students, because they are going to go on to become ticket buyers, hopefully season ticket holders, board members, arts advocates, arts supporters, and they're going to put their students in arts courses and continue this ecosystem of theater arts. So we are very passionate, not about training professional artists through this program, but training future arts supporters, because all arts organizations need arts audiences. We always will. So that is what this program is about. And our judges are fully on board with that. And they love talking to students who are going to love theater for the rest of their lives.
Well said. Leads us right into our next anonymous attendee's question. How can we better promote arts advocacy as students, even if we aren't directly involved in the arts?
Well, you don't need to be directly involved with the arts. Sometimes it is even better. There are times when we are working on specific arts advocacy initiatives where we're actually not asking artists to make phone calls, we're asking business leaders to make phone calls. So whatever job you end up having or career path you take, there is a role for you in arts advocacy. So some very simple things that you can do. Go to artsnc.org and sign up to be on the Arts North Carolina email list. It's free to sign up. And you can do the same at Americans for the Arts. Sign up for their email list. It is free to sign up. And with both of those organizations, I know everybody gets a lot of emails, but they won't send you too many, I promise. And they're important emails. You will get arts action alerts or advocacy calls to action. And what this means is that those of us that are working on a piece of support for the arts, whether it's funding or policy or whatever it is, we have gotten to the point with the legislation or the initiative where we need your support. So the way that our elected officials get support is from voters. The way they make decisions is they need to hear from their voters to hear what is important to their voters. So once you're on those email lists, you will get an arts action alert, a call to action, and it will say very, very simply what to do. You will click a button to contact an elected official. They will connect you directly with the people you need to contact. They will tell you what you need to say. They will say, add your own personal story here if you wish. You will click a few buttons and send an email, or you will make a phone call and we'll give you a script of exactly what to say, and you will contact the elected official in your area. It's much more important for elected officials to hear from voters in their area than to hear from me. The first thing they ask many times when I walk into their office is, are you in my district? No, ma'am, I am not, but I represent people in your district. Sure. They want to hear from their voters in their district. So you're going to reach out to people in your district, the elected officials there, and they're going to want to hear from you. And they do want to hear from you. Believe me, they want to hear what their voters are concerned about. So it's very simple. Sign up, follow those email alerts, and that's the best first way to get involved.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So we've talked about the play festival. We talked about, well, part of the audition items. Talk to us a bit about NCTC's producing gathering.
Sure. So the NCTC Producing Gathering is a conference that we have in the summer for our professional and community theaters. This is where the people who run theater companies, not necessarily performers, but those who work on the administrative side, come together to talk with each other about the issues that we're facing. So we're talking about fundraising, marketing, arts advocacy, budgeting, staffing, season planning, everything that we do every day. This is our conference, our time to come together. And it's as much about attending workshops and learning as it is just about networking and connecting, seeing each other's faces, being in a room together. I know COVID. And just reconnecting. We have social events, we have performances. That's what that photo is that you're seeing there. Last year we workshopped a new play, a new production of Triad Stage that had an audience engagement interactive portion. So I was drafted up on stage to take part, which I look thrilled there. I am not, but I did my part. So we just get together and we do everything we can to lift each other up and renew each other so we can go back into the field and do the work again. Unfortunately, we didn't get to have our conference this summer. We were actually going to be at NC State in Raleigh. So we're sad we didn't get to be with you all. I don't know if we'll be back next summer yet. That decision hasn't been made, but regardless, the field continues to work together and connect, but we miss seeing each other. We miss the snacks. There's lots of free snacks. There's lots of just hanging out time. There's some drinking involved and lots of eating and just spending quality time together. But lots of important learning too. We hear from national speakers and get new skills and learn important things while we're together as well.
Awesome. All right. And everyone, we've got a few more minutes left. So if you got a question, please feel free to throw it out there real quick for Angie. I'm sure she'll be able to answer for you right away. All right. So let's ask you this question. Let's see. What has been the biggest win for you in the last 13 years of being with NCTC? What has made you feel the most accomplished?
We've talked about a few of the things, growing the staff, the arts education graduation requirement. But, I think some of the biggest wins are things that I don't realize are going to have a big impact. We spend so much time working on these programs and events, and we know the impact that they can have. But sometimes we make a decision that doesn't seem big at the time and pays off in a big way. So I'll give you two examples. One is that we used to have a banquet every year at one of our events where we presented the annual NCTC awards. And so these are every year we give an award for Community Theater of the Year, Professional Theater of the Year, College, University, things like that. And we used to have a banquet. And for many reasons, the banquet was no longer well attended. And so really out of necessity, we were like, we can't keep spending money on these banquet dinners. No one's coming. What is this? We decided we would go out into the field to present the awards. So we would notify the award winners in December, hey, congratulations, you're getting this award. When would you like us to come and do a presentation? And this has turned into the most incredible celebration in communities. We've had mayors show up at the presentation to give a key to the city, to the community theater, declaring it Hickory Community Theater Day in honor of the award. We have now incorporated into our award presentation speech that if you'd like to help celebrate this award, how about you get out your checkbook and make a donation? And we've had a $10,000 check handed to a theater company in recognition of the award they received. So that's just something that we did, out of necessity that became this amazing, huge thing. Another example is I had an idea several years ago of maybe we could get some of our college members, our university members, to partner with us on the Play Festival. And at the State Play Festival, those students that receive the biggest awards, maybe they would offer them a college scholarship. And I reached out to several of our schools, and immediately 3 of our universities, Catawba College, Lenoir-Rhyne, and Greensboro College, said, yep, we're in. They don't choose these scholarship winners. Our judges choose them through the awards process. But on stage that night, we give away 6 nearly full ride scholarships to students. And these students, some of them, in that moment, their lives have changed. They did not think they could go to college. I remember one student, her mom, a single mom, she hadn't come to the state festival because she had to work. But she, called her mom literally from the stage, and she was coming off the stage to let her know about this scholarship. Her mom met the bus in the parking lot on the way home, and it changed their lives forever. So something as simple as, I wonder if some of our colleges would like to do this, has turned into literally a life-changing part of programming that we do. So those are some of the biggest wins. And I'm sure there will be more in places where I don't even see it coming, which is amazing.
That's great. All right. So our last question that we ask at every Strictly Speaking, what one piece of advice would you give a young person wanting to go into arts administration?
Well, if you don't mind, I think I'd like to speak specifically to the women who are watching, because I noticed we have several ladies submitting questions, and that I specifically want to speak to the women because I think we have sometimes a harder path in arts administration. I know we do. So what I want to say to you is put your foot in the door. If you see a job listing and you think I'm not quite qualified, know that your white male colleagues might not read the listing in the same way, and they might be applying when you think you're not qualified. So if you think you're not qualified completely, but you have some of the qualifications, submit that application. When you are doing internships, do not be afraid to speak up and ask if you can be in the room. If there is a staff meeting happening and no one has asked you to come in, do not be afraid to knock on the door and say, do you mind if I observe the meeting? Do not be afraid to step in the room, and do it with authority and kindness and a smile. But don't be afraid to step in the room, because your male counterparts will not be afraid. I've talked about some of the other things that I think are important: doing your research, being a generalist, learning everything that you can, getting involved anywhere you can. But I think that's an important one right now. Put your foot in the room.
I love that. I love that. Thank you, Angie. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us tonight with Strictly Speaking. That is our program for this evening. If you have any other questions you would like to ask, please send them to me at jareave2@ncsu.edu. I'll throw it in the chat, and I'll be glad to pass it on to Angie, and hopefully we'll get some answers for you. But other than that, we are done for the night. Angie, have a great night.